So as we transition into our next spotlight, I think we're, again, zeroing in on different communities. And so I'm going to ask for Dr. Crystal Bedley to come up and share a little bit more about two programs that we have in DICE, which is our Equity Advisors and Research to Practice, which is going to share and do a little bit of storytelling, introduce you to some folks who are working so diligently with us. And if you could give her a round of applause as she comes.
Introduction. All right, folks who have been freezing in the room with me, folks online whose eyes are probably like I don't know, burning right now. Take a moment, get with me today. See, this is why I like to be up here, because I get to do what I want now that I'm up here. I'm gonna start by just, today is a day where we're focusing on the progress of diversity, and I just wanted to take a moment and piggybacking off of Jakasia Wiley's presentation to talk about, I just want everybody to know I was a McNair Scholar, a proud McNair Scholar. Yes, McNair. I wouldn't have my PhD if it wasn't for that program, and I wouldn't have finished it if I didn't get to work with the students on this campus to do that work. So, and now we're looking at 20 years later, like, I don't mind dating myself, the wrinkles already do, right? So, sometimes progress is slow, but a lot can be accomplished, and I'm just one example of that. And we know that the work has to continue in community, right? Our first panel today was really focused on talking about how important community is and coalition building to advance change. And I feel like that's a lot of the work that the equity advisors do. And so as we continue to sort of point the spotlight and pull back the veil on what the work that happens day in and day out, right? The sort of hours that you all don't get to see, but you if we're fortunate enough to get to see the fruits of our labor, and share more about this particular initiative in the Division of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement. So who is the most important at this point? Who are the equity advisors? And I'm going to name all of them because I want folks to be able to know who the point people are in their academic schools, right? And in our colleges as well. These are the people who every day are coordinating initiatives. I'm going to get into the details about more of the work that they do, and many of them are in the room today. So you can give me like a wave when I say your name. I won't make you stand, but get to know these folks that are connected to the spaces that you're in, right? Because while DICE is fortunate enough to centralize and bring this group together, they're the ones in your schools putting on the programming, right? Dealing with crisis when it emerges related to diversity or inclusion topics, right? So getting to know them will only benefit you. So here we go. In no particular order than is when I found their pictures and put them on the slide. We have Dr. Bernadette Gaillard, who is in the School of Communications and Information. And this is good. Yes, thank you for the wave. You all are gonna get the test of how good I am at my Rutgers knowledge 20 years in, right? If I name something wrong, correct me as we go through this. We have Dan Rice, who's located in the back of our room today for the Graduate School of Professional and Applied Psychology. Antoinette Farmer with the School of Social Work. Marshall Jones III in Mason Gross School of the Arts. We have Troy Ropke in our School of Biological and Environmental Sciences. Kimberly Cook Chenault in our School of Engineering. Patty O'Brien Richardson in Edward J. Bousting School of Planning and Public Policy. Darren Clark in our Graduate School of Education, also in the room with us today. Krista Klein in the Honors College. Hazel Ann Johnson Marcus in our School of Management and Labor Relations. Zaire Dinzi Flores, who is also my faculty advisor. This matters, all these connections matter, right? For the School of Arts and Sciences. Evelyn Ehrenrich at our School of Graduate Studies. Nora Hyland, who is a co-equity advisor with Darren in our our Graduate School of Education. Medina El-Amin in Douglas College. And once again, because this work is ongoing and so many of these folks have been serving in these roles this whole time, the smaller pictures are one, so I can get them all on the same slide, but also critical to name the folks who had been a part of this work in an ongoing fashion. So other folks had served as equity advisors in previous iterations. Ron Quincy, Brianna Bivens, Maria Kramer, Tracy Chang, and Eileen Cowler. And so we hope to continue Eileen's legacy. Those who are unfamiliar, she passed a few months ago. But folks who have been so strongly committed to advancing diversity, inclusion, and equity work on campus. And they're just really kind and like folks who want to be there to support all of the work that we do. So if you didn't, so now you know who the players are at the table. What exactly do they do? I mean, you can kind of get a little bit of a sense from their title. But the bullet points I'm going to go through here momentarily reflect conversations that we've had as the roles have grown over the last several years about what does this work look like. And even if I try to provide a comprehensive portrait of the way this work looks on the ground, it's going to be incomplete, right? There's so much that's going to be left unsaid, but just to give you a sort of high-level overview of what they do, right? They're going to be figuring out what are the barriers that are taking place by asking questions and gathering information. They're trying to figure out what the systemic issues are. Are there particular populations that are being affected differently, negatively, right? And then strategizing about what kind of solutions need to be implemented in order to support those populations or to disrupt the bias or bigotry or to change structures, right? So that they are more equitable and inclusive. Right? So some of that is going to happen through coaching and advising, right? Where I've failed to mention thus far, but each of the equity advisors have been appointed by the dean of their school or college. They have a very close working relationship. Most, if not all, work in their dean's office. Just depends on the structure of that particular unit, right? So have that direct access and continued conversation with leadership. I think Dean Lawson showed it really eloquently in our panel discussion this morning, talking about some examples of how her and Troy work together to accomplish these really important goals. They're going to amplify student voices and perspectives, as well as the voices of the faculty and staff in these spaces. They do, we can talk a lot about the ways that Rutgers is decentralized, and I think there's some moments in which we try to have greater centralization. But at the end of the day, a lot of the work in a large bureaucracy that's decentralized is connecting the dots, right? So they're paying attention to all of the different resources that are available across our campus and figuring out how do we connect those supports. One thing that makes Rutgers, for me at least, a really beautiful and wonderful place to work is that, one, I'm in a room with so many outstanding people. I think I know almost everybody in this room today, and I know the ways in which we are all continue to be invested in this work, and because we're highly relational, we know that these connection points help us leverage the resources that exist. There are so many resources here at Rutgers, and gaps. I'll be the first to, if you talk to me over coffee, and I'm going to tell you what the problems are, but we can come together and kind of strategize and figure out and bring together, connect those dots so that we can have the highest impact with the resources that are available. So even when we think about ways in which resources are strapped, keep in mind that we have a really robust and the complexity of our institution in this way can actually benefit us as long as we can figure out how to navigate it. So the equity advisors are routinely navigating in this space. So I've mentioned they're already thinking about the kind of policies and practices that need to be adjusted. That work of culture change to make it more inclusive and equitable requires an attention to how things are done and the policies that provide the guardrails of the work that we do, right? And finally, they come together as a group on a monthly basis to strategize, to think about how to support one another. You're gonna get some particular examples of that in a few minutes, but just to know that part of the work is actually learning from one another, figuring out how to come together to collaborate to do something bigger and more impactful. And I truly just feel really blessed routinely that I get to be able to share space with all of them and host a meeting, and then they come with all their brilliance and make it happen. So now you know who they are. You have a little bit better idea of what they do. Actually, let me pause briefly just to say that they're instrumental, so not in advancing goal 1 of the diversity strategic plan. If we take us back to our opening welcome, that the Interim Vice Chancellor Butler gave, right? We talked about like how all of our work, so once again, these are like the skeleton or the backbone of the work that we're doing, right, as this diversity strategic plan. And if you're not familiar with it, I highly recommend that you go to the NB diversity page and familiarize yourself with the 5 priority areas. The first of those is to recruit and retain a diverse community. And you can see how much of the work that has already been shared today is in support of that goal. And it's no surprise then that the equity advisors are really committed to doing that work. You know, they're responsible in particular for ensuring that our faculty search and hiring processes employ evidence-based practices to promote equity, inclusion, and diversity in hiring outcomes. What I mean by that is they are a named group. When you go look at our phase 2 of the diversity strategic plan, we work together really closely to ensure that we are diversifying our faculty, right, so they can better support our student populations. And that's just one step in the many levels of work that is taking place. And more broadly, they're responsible for developing targeted supports for future faculty, right? So they're being attentive to those in the pipeline at all different stages, and how do we ensure that we continue in that work? Okay, so now that you know a bit about, you know who they are, you know what they do, we can really talk about impact. And rather than hear it from me, I'm gonna share how they have talked about it, and then I have the great fortune of bringing one of our amazing equity advisors on stage to speak more in depth about the impact that being an equity advisor has on them personally, and then the impact that they're making within Rutgers and our broader communities. So if you'll indulge me, I'm going to read this first quote from Kimberly Cook-Chenault, once again, the School of Engineering. Being an equity advisor has allowed me to learn from others and garner support in achieving the goals and objectives of this role in our respective units. The community of scholars and leaders has helped me to reimagine the best ways to advance scholarship in our respective disciplines by establishing programs that build community, ignite critical and inclusive thinking and discussion of ideas, and extend access in higher education. Sort of 3 core domains in which being an equity advisor has allowed her to carry out that work. Next, I'm sharing a quote from Krista Klein in our Honors College that shows the ways in which she's leveraged this role to better serve her community. As an equity advisor, I've been provided a space and the grace to process difficult conversations within and beyond my immediate community. It's helped me develop empathy for members of my communities, especially students, and slow down enough to listen to their needs. Outside of Rutgers, my experience as an equity advisor has helped me serve my daughter's school in their school safety and climate team for the K-12 age group. I'm so thankful to be part of the equity advisor team where I can share concerns openly and receive such affirming feedback. The final quote I'll share with you today is by Bernadette Gaillard, who's going to come up very shortly to say more about the impact. Being an equity advisor has sustained me while doing the important but emotionally hard work. Let's say that again. This is not easy, folks. You in the room who've been doing this work, you know it, right? And yet, many of us see it as our life's work. Whether we're doing it in this role or somewhere else, this is the work we've been committed to. But it's not easy. The space has been one of support and care amongst others who get it, which allows me to bring my authentic self and feel seen. As a department of 1 in my unit, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the enormity of the work. It's vast, you know. I know I'm going off script, but she'll allow me, right? But being an EA has given me a community of colleagues to learn with and from, help facilitate collaborations across campus, and kept me integrated in the larger Rutgers institutional practices so I can be a more empowered leader. And so with that, I'd like to bring her to the stage to share a bit more about the impact.
Thank you, Crystal. Good to see you all today. And I sent this quote probably, like a month ago, 3 weeks or so?
Yeah.
And it still resonates, especially that first sentence about the emotionally hard part of the work. Particularly, you know, in this moment we are in now, that is one of the key things that I really appreciate about being an equity advisor, having a group of colleagues who during these stressful times hold space for each other. As Crystal mentioned already, in a large group where we have our monthly meetings, we definitely take time to talk about what's going on, as well as how are we practicing self-care on an ongoing basis, and acknowledging some of the ways that we're not, right? And so that we can do better. But it also happens in one-on-one relationships among us as well, where I have, semester meetings with Dan and others so that we can get together to know each other as people, right? Again, this idea of community in the work, and to support each other with the things that are happening in our schools and units. Also, along this line of community and support, we strategize, we talk about different thoughtful approaches to how to do the work, and so I appreciate that in terms of, again, being a unit of one, that there's a lot of things to serve faculty, staff, and students, and so having others to be thought partners with me in the work, to think about, what it might look like, and to, assess some of the potential obstacles and prepare for those is very helpful in this space. And the other point is around collaboration. Being among the group offers opportunities for us to work together to have even greater impact. So we've all co-sponsored different events for and with one another. Most recently in October for the School of Communication and Information, I hosted the Communicating Diversity Conference, in which we brought grad students from across the university together to talk about to get to know each other, first of all, who are in the DEI space, and then to talk about what that work could look like moving forward. We were also able to bring in Janae Johnson, who is the New Jersey's director of the Office of Equity for the governor. And so it's great to have her here as well and to share with our graduate students. And the equity advisors were helpful in securing co-sponsorship funds to support the event from SAS, GAZAP, SEBS, there's another one I feel like I'm missing, sorry, but that was instrumental for that event happening, and we've done that for others as well. And then also we created a presentation for graduate students around how to understand community engaged scholarship and the social implications of their work as well, right? And so we did that once in our STEM and our SEBS, with our SEBS graduate students, led by Troy, and we're looking forward for other opportunities to be able to bring that to other locations as well. So it's a great group of people, I think that's most important, great group of people, and then also, it's also really nice to be able to reflect on the impact of our work, both for me personally and then also in the university. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Will you stay with me for questions? Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you for sharing those insights.